Yeah, so the NIMs, our estimate was 3.5, which was down slightly from last quarter's 3.55. That's come in at 3.40. So I guess you can classify that as a miss. In the case of HDFC, it was actually 10 bips higher than what we had projected at 4.3 versus 4.2. So there has been a miss on the NIMs front as far as the brokerage estimates are concerned. Also, you were talking about the deposits and advances. So those were supposed to grow on a YOY basis by 20%, and I think those have all been met. Deposit book has grown by 19% YOY and 5% sequentially. So that's another key factor to look out for. We keep talking about the larger private banks are going to benefit by gaining disproportionate deposits from their peers, whether they be in the PSU space or the smaller private banks, because right now there's a flight to quality, and we've seen what's happened. You know, I'm not trying to single anyone out, but there have been banks where deposits have been an issue, and large prominent banks. So here sequentially as well in Q1 you're seeing a 5% rise in the deposits. So that's a positive cue to look out for, that is not slowing down. And let's remember, all these larger private banks, why do people trust them more and like them more? Because you count on the underwriting quality, you trust the asset quality more. So the growth is equally important in these banks, because when that really slows down, it causes concern. So at least no indications that growth is going to slow down significantly just yet. But I believe we now have some experts here with us who are joining in to help diagnose this result. Yeah, we have Darpin Shah with us. Hi Darpin, good evening. What's your first read on these numbers that Axis has just put out?
So, earnings look largely in line with the estimates. Asset quality, there's some improvement, especially in the BNPA side, which was expected. But the bigger thing is the net NPAs have fallen sharply to around 20% on a sequential basis, if I'm reading that right. So that is a positive, which means they increase their provision staff. So that is a positive. I'm yet to look at the moratorium number. If you have anything, please do that. Hello?
Yeah, sure. We're going to just find that moratorium number for you. But in the meanwhile, what do you think about the level of provisioning that's come in at just about 4,000 crores? Now, if you look at it, 2 quarters in a row, last quarter 7,700, this quarter 4,000. So they do seem to be providing fairly extensively. Even HDFC had around a 4,000 crore provision this quarter. So do you think that's sufficient for the kind of stress that's possibly being anticipated?
It is difficult to assess at the current juncture how much stress will evolve in 3Q and 4Q. But what we think is, Axis has been proactively making provisions, which is visible from their coverage ratio. If you see 2 quarters back, their coverage was almost 60%, now it is almost 75%. Additionally, they have created cushions for over provisions as well. So this looks slightly on the better side.
Right. The asset quality, do you think that this time around it's been stable, largely with the moratorium being extended, but the trend going forward, particularly from Q3 onwards, will be far more important to track and could be a bit of a niggling issue?
Yes, of course. That's what I said. Post-moratorium gets over, not only for Axis, but for the entire sector. Asset quality movement will be the key monitoring.
Lalitabh Srivastav as well joining in on the phone line. Lalitabh, hi there, good evening. 1,112 crore rupees in terms of the PAT performance for Axis Bank, with the NIIs coming in at 6,985 crores. How are you reading into the initial quarterly numbers, and how does it stack up vis-a-vis your estimates?
Yeah, hi. It was largely in line with our expectation as well. The positive thing that I see is that, in line with some of the other peers as well, asset quality has improved. Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Please carry on.
Yeah. What we were expecting the results are largely in line with our expectations as well. The good thing is that, the trend that we are seeing with some of the peer banks as well, that asset quality wise, there is a sequential improvement. It is seen in Axis Bank also. So that is, I think, that is a positive thing. I am not able to, see the moratorium number that they have shared so far. I am not able to find that. But it will be, positive if that trends down. Okay.
Yeah, Lalita, that number has not been provided in the press release. I've just actually done a search for it and it's not there. So let's avoid that for now. I wanted to ask you a question on the margins. The NIM estimates, all brokers at 3.50 or above. It's come in slightly lower at 3.4. So there is a sequential tapering off for 2 quarters now. So what are some of the factors that you think could have led to suppressed NIM for Axis this time round?
Yeah, so on the NIM side, slight, compression, but I do not see this as a very normal quarter. This is a quarter where you would be having a slower asset quality, asset growth, as well as, there can be some amount of interest reversals as well. So there is some, deterioration on, or rather, lesser than expectation, NIM's performance, but I'll not hold that against it. My view would be that at 3.4%, I think that is fairly satisfactory.
Okay, fine. And just one more thing, if you look at the result, the other income this quarter is significantly lower. And I mean, last quarter the figures were closer to around 4,000 crore. This time you're looking at 2,500. So if you adjust for that, then isn't it actually a very good number? Because if my other income, let's say if my services and fee income were normalized, how they would be in any other quarter, then my operating profit would be significantly higher, right? My end profitability, because right now it's held up at pretty much the same level. So I think, don't you think that's a positive sign as well?
Yeah, I mean, this quarter as it is was an impacted quarter, a truncated quarter. So the bank has also stated that there are lower business volumes which were mainly impacting the retail fee income. It was kind of expected only. Going forward, how the retail fee income picks up, that will be very helpful going forward, because from now on we are not seeing, at least as of now, overhang of lockdowns and impacted business traction going forward, at least for Q2.
The CASA ratio at about 41%. You have seen the total deposits grow about 19% on a year-on-year basis. And we also spoke about how their overall net interest income has seen a decent growth this time. What are the other parameters, Lalita, that you would track for Axis Bank, and how do you think they fared on these fronts?
Yes, CASA ratio is fairly important. These Axis Bank, as well as some of the stronger private sector banks, as well as a couple of strong banks like State Bank, are expected to see some benefits from the flow of deposits from some of the smaller sized and weaker perceived private banks as well. So CASA was expected to be healthy. My view at this point of time would be very much on the asset quality front, because going forward, that is something, and the provisioning buffer that the bank is able to maintain. Also, clarity on how the a moratorium book is performing and how that is, expected to pan out, that will also be keenly looked at.
Lalita, give us a view as to what kind of commentary you would want to hear, or what are the crucial takeaways that you would want to hear from the management of Axis Bank on the outlook going forward.
See, at this point of time, I don't think it will be fair to expect the management to come out very aggressive on growth. Cautious growth commentary is... Hello? Yeah, so cautious growth commentary I'll be happy with. The important thing is that how the asset quality is holding up, and how the moratorium book, the existing book that we have, how that is holding up, how that is performing, and what is the collections scenario that the bank is getting. Those are some of the important things that I would be looking at.
Okay, Lalita, that's great. Darpin, let's come back to you. We haven't forgotten about you. Talking on the subject of moratorium, we'll find out even HDFC, the number didn't come in the result immediately. Then we found out later that it was around 9%. Now, in the case of Axis, it began slightly higher, and I believe at the last disclosure of data, that figure stood at around 26%. So, with a figure like that, where do you benchmark Axis in the range of banks which have perhaps poor asset quality and a larger degree of moratorium compared to an HDFC or even an SBI for that matter, which has under 20% moratorium? So where do you benchmark Axis and all that? And where would you like to see that figure eventually settle for Axis?
It is difficult to put a number where it will settle. But I guess, SBI reported around, even they reported around 24% moratorium as per the annual report. ICICI also was at a similar level for 30% type give and take. So more or less, large banks were in that range, even for that matter, Kotak as well. So I don't see material change between these larger names.
One more question on that side, as you probably know, they keep talking about how, a small percentage of loans going bad is, if you look at moratorium, they say, okay, if 2% of loans go bad, but as a portion of net worth, even that 2% can be a really big hit. And I'm just looking at Axis Bank's capital adequacy, well in excess of 17%, and they've just done a huge raise. So, even if 2-3% of this book, let's say, goes bad out of the 24% that's in moratorium, do you think that the current raise that they've just been talking about and planned is capable of dealing with that, at least in the near term?
Yeah, it should suffice them. Because they have already created cushions with provision for earlier and so it should help them.
Okay, and Lalita, do you have any take on, where you feel Axis is placed as far as the current standing on moratorium is and what the potential threat could be? And do you think the recently raised amount by them or planned raise is sufficient to take care of any near-term hurdles?
Yeah, I think the capital raise will be an important cushion for the balance sheet. My sense is that the bank like Axis Bank will be able to tide over these near-term challenges. My expectation in the moratorium is that even though the overall numbers would shrink down in line with some of the other peers as well, but the last 5 or 10 odd % levels would be the real tricky one. So how the bank manages to address that will be important. But as of now, on the capital side, I think this capital raise should help.
Lalita, keeping in mind the overall capital raise, the way the stock has moved in the last 1 month and even the last 6 months after that underperformance, you have seen some amount of recovery kicking in. at about 450. What is your verdict on the stock price of Axis Bank after having digested these numbers, which aren't looking all too bad? Lalita? Lalita, that question was for you. Your advice on the stock? Okay, we'll wind up that discussion then. Thank you so much, Varun, as well as Darpin and Lalita for joining in, breaking down the quarterly numbers of Axis Bank. Quick break, be back with more.